I never thought a simple night jog would turn my life upside down, but here I am, trapped in a nightmare I can't seem to wake up from. It all started when I moved to Millbrook, hoping to cure my insomnia. I'm Sarah, by the way, and I used to think the worst thing that could happen to me was another sleepless night. How wrong I was. It was on one of those endless nights that I decided to try jogging in Oakwood Park. The moment I stepped into that misty darkness, I felt something was off. The trees seemed to reach for me, and shadows danced at the corner of my eyes. I told myself it was just my tired mind playing tricks. That's when I saw it, a figure standing motionless in the distance. I should have turned back right then, but curiosity got the better of me. As I got closer, my blood ran cold. It wasn't a person, but a life-sized mannequin, its blank eyes seeming to follow me. At its feet was a small device with a blinking red light. I heard a twig snap behind me and ran like hell. I could have sworn someone was chasing me, but when I looked back, there was nothing but darkness. I didn't stop until I was safe in my apartment, heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, but that night I heard a beeping outside my window. The mannequin was there on the sidewalk, staring up at me. That's when my world began to unravel. For a week, that damn mannequin followed me everywhere. Outside my office, in the parking lot, always watching. The police thought I was crazy. My friends suggested therapy, but I knew what I saw. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I marched out to confront the thing. That's when I noticed the camera in its eye. It hit me. This wasn't supernatural, it was human. Someone was stalking me, playing some sick game. As I reached out to examine it closer, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around to see a man in a dark hoodie. "You weren't supposed to figure it out so soon," he said. His voice was familiar, but before I could place it, I felt a sharp prick in my neck, and everything went black. I woke up in a room full of monitors showing hidden camera footage from all over town. The man in the hoodie was there. It was Derek, my seemingly friendly neighbor. He told me I was the first to get this far in their game. Around the room were other familiar faces, the barista, the mailman, even the police chief. They were all part of this twisted hunting society. Now I have a choice: join them or become their next target. Either way, I know I'll never look at this town the same way again. And those nightly walks, they've become a thing of nightmares. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I do know one thing. If you're new in town and someone suggests a night jog, run the other way. You never know who or what might be waiting in the shadows. I've always been a night owl, but after what happened in Blackwood Forest, I'm not sure I'll ever enjoy the darkness again. My name's Alex, and I used to be an amateur photographer specializing in night landscapes. Used to be, because now I can't even look at my camera without shaking. It all started when I heard about the legend of the Whispering Pines in Blackwood Forest. Locals said that on certain nights, you could hear the trees whispering secrets of the past. As a skeptic and a sucker for a good photo op, I decided to camp out and capture this phenomenon, if it existed. The first 2 nights were uneventful. Just me, my camera, and the typical sounds of a forest at night. But on the 3rd night, everything changed. It started with a faint sound, almost like the wind, but more deliberate. I initially brushed it off, thinking my mind was playing tricks on me, but as the night wore on, the sound grew clearer. It was whispering, all right, but not in any language I recognized. Excited, I set up my equipment to record the sound. That's when I noticed something in my camera's viewfinder, shadowy figures moving between the trees. I blinked and they were gone. Chalking it up to exhaustion, I refocused on the whispers. As I listened closely, I began to make out words in English. They were disjointed, fragmented. Trapped, help us, beware the keeper. A chill ran down my spine. This was more than just a local legend. Suddenly, my camera's screen went black. When it came back on, the footage showed something that made my blood run cold. A face, pale and gaunt, with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness, staring directly into the lens. I dropped the camera in shock. That's when I heard it, footsteps coming from all directions. I grabbed my flashlight and swung it around wildly. In its beam, I caught glimpses of people. No, not people. They were translucent, their feet hovering above the ground. Ghosts. I was surrounded by ghosts. I ran, leaving everything behind. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. As I burst out of the forest, I heard one final clear message. You've seen us. Now he knows. Run. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. As I sped away, I glanced in my rearview mirror. There at the edge of the forest stood a tall, dark figure. It wasn't one of the ghosts. This thing was solid, real, and it was staring right at me. For weeks after, I was plagued by nightmares. I'd wake up to find my room full of whispers, only for them to stop when I turned on the lights. My developed photos from that night showed nothing but blurry shapes and strange orbs of light. I tried to go back once in broad daylight to retrieve my equipment, but the forest had changed. The paths I knew were gone, replaced by dense, unfamiliar growth. It was as if the forest itself was keeping me out. I've since learned that I'm not the first to have this experience in Blackwood Forest. There are others, but most are too scared to talk about it. Those who do speak of a dark entity they call the Keeper, a being that traps souls in the forest. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I still hear the whispers. They're calling for help, but I don't know how to save them. All I know is that something ancient and evil lurks in Blackwood Forest, and it's only a matter of time before it comes looking for me. So if you're ever near Blackwood and hear about the Whispering Pines, do yourself a favor. Stay away. Some secrets are better left unheard, and some places are better left unexplored, because once you hear the whispers, you'll never truly escape them. I used to love train rides at night. The gentle rocking, the rhythmic clacking of wheels on tracks, the world rushing by outside the window. It was peaceful, almost hypnotic. That was before I boarded the 11:59 p.m. express from Chicago to New York. Now, the mere thought of trains makes me break out in a cold sweat. My name's Emily, and I'm a traveling salesperson. That night, I was exhausted from a long day of meetings and looking forward to sleeping through the journey. As I settled into my seat, I noticed something odd. The train was nearly empty, just a handful of passengers scattered throughout the car. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by an abrupt stop. The lights flickered and an announcement crackled over the speakers. Unscheduled stop. Please remain in your seats. I checked my watch, 3:33 a.m. We were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense forest. That's when I noticed the fog. It was seeping into the train car, thick and unnatural. And in that fog I saw shapes, human-like, but wrong somehow. Elongated limbs, featureless faces. They were pressing against the windows, their hands leaving smears on the glass. I looked around frantically, but the other passengers seemed oblivious. An elderly man snored softly. A woman in a business suit typed on her laptop. Was I the only one seeing this? Suddenly, the train lurched forward again. The fog dissipated, and the shapes vanished. I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But then I saw the smears on the windows. As the night wore on, things got stranger. The landscape outside never changed, just endless, dark forest. The other passengers never moved, and every so often we'd stop again, and the fog would return with its nightmarish shapes. I tried to talk to the conductor, but the door to his compartment was locked. When I spoke to other passengers, they responded with vacant smiles and nonsensical words. It was as if I was the only real person on a train full of mannequins. Hours passed, far more than the journey should have taken. My watch had stopped at 3:33 a.m. My phone had no signal. I was trapped in a nightmare that seemed to have no end. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the train screeched to a final stop. The doors hissed open, and a voice announced, "Final destination. All passengers must disembark." I stumbled out onto a platform that definitely wasn't New York. It was old, decayed, surrounded by that same dark forest. A sign hung crookedly, "Welcome to Nowhere." The other passengers filed out robotically, disappearing into the mist that cloaked the platform. As the last one vanished, I heard a chilling laugh behind me. I turned to see the conductor, except it wasn't human. Its face was a swirling void, its uniform crawling with shadows. "Welcome home, Emily," it said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We've been waiting for you." I ran, through the mist, into the forest, branches whipping my face as I fled from whatever that thing was. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. When I finally stopped, I realized with horror that I could still hear the train whistle in the distance. Somehow, I found my way back to civilization. But no one believes my story. There's no record of my ticket, no missing train, no town called nowhere. But I know what I experienced. Now, I drive everywhere, no matter how long it takes. Because I'm terrified that if I ever board another train, especially at night, I might find myself back on that platform with that thing welcoming me home. So if you're ever on a late-night train and it makes an unscheduled stop, whatever you do, don't look out the window. And if you hear a conductor announce nowhere as the final destination, don't get off. Because some journeys aren't meant to end, and some destinations are better left unreached. I never thought I'd be telling this story. Partly because I didn't think anyone would believe me, and partly because I'm not sure I believe it myself. But here goes. My name's Michael, and I used to have a pretty normal life. That is, until I joined the Nightwalkers Club. It started innocently enough. I'd recently moved to the city and was having trouble sleeping. One night, while scrolling through a local community forum, I saw a post about a group for insomniacs who like to walk at night. It seemed perfect. Safe, social, and a way to tire myself out. If only I'd known what I was really signing up for. The first few walks were uneventful. We'd meet at midnight in the park, a group of about 10 people, and walk for a couple of hours. We'd chat, enjoy the quiet of the sleeping city, and go our separate ways. But on the fifth night, things changed. As we gathered, our group leader, a tall woman named Vanessa, announced we'd be taking a different route. She led us down unfamiliar streets, deeper into the city than we'd ever gone before. The buildings seemed to loom over us, their shadows deeper and darker than usual. We turned down an alley I'd never noticed before, and suddenly the air felt different, heavier somehow. That's when I realized the city sounds had stopped. No distant traffic, no humming streetlights, just silence. Vanessa stopped in front of a nondescript door and turned to us with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Welcome," she said, "to the real Nightwalkers Club." Inside was a vast room that shouldn't have fit in the building we'd entered. Dozens of people milled about, all with the same vacant expression. In the center was a swirling vortex of darkness that seemed to pull at my very soul. Vanessa explained that the Nightwalkers Club was ancient, a group dedicated to walking between realities. Each night, they'd bring new recruits to this place, this threshold between worlds. Some would be chosen to step through the portal. Others would be left behind to find more recruits. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The other new members were already approaching the vortex, drawn by its pull. I watched in horror as they stepped in and vanished. Just as I felt myself beginning to move towards it, a hand grabbed my arm. It was Tom, another new member. His eyes were clear, terrified. "We have to get out of here," he whispered. Somehow we managed to break free and run. Behind us, I heard Vanessa's voice, no longer human, screeching in anger. We burst out of the building into daylight. We'd been in there all night. In the days that followed, Tom and I tried to find the alley again, to no avail. We went to the police, but they dismissed our story as a shared hallucination. The other members of our walking group had vanished without a trace. Now, Tom and I spend our nights differently. We walk the city, but not for exercise or sleep. We're looking for that door, that alley. Not to go back in, but to stop others from entering. Because we know the truth. In every city, in every group of nightwalkers, the real Nightwalkers Club is waiting. Waiting to take you on a walk you might never return from. So if you're an insomniac looking for a late-night walking group, be careful. Ask where you're going and who you're really walking with. Because some night walks lead to places you can't come back from, and some clubs have membership fees too high to pay. And if you ever find yourself in front of a door that shouldn't be there, in a silence that's too complete, remember this story. Turn around, walk away, run if you have to. Because the night is dark and full of walkers, and not all of them are from this world.